Hello and welcome. I'm Sean Dubé.
I'm Patrick Quinlan.
And this is Supporting Actors, a podcast about the art, business, and craft of acting from the perspective of two sometimes working actors.
And today we're going to be talking about all things representation, agents, managers, red flags, and everything in between.
Right? But before that, we got a little bit of news for that's relevant to actors. So USC just came out with an AI Institute for Actors, where they're going to be teaching actors how to use AI to help them with their business and prepare them for the industry. This is, I think, taken a lot of interesting conversations and uh, taken the internet by storm a little bit. I know that Reddit was not a big fan of of this announcement, but what is Reddit really a fan of? I don't know. That's a great question.
Yeah, it was interesting. I read the press release, I think, in the LA Times, or the cover in the LA Times, and they make some interesting points, but it also, like all things with AI, it all seems like a lot of publicity at this point too. Like, so it's hard to say what will come to fruition and what will be beneficial about it. Did anything stand out to you about what they might be teaching their young actors?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that was hilarious is that one of the teachers was interviewed for a different publication, and they were like, "We don't like this, we don't condone it, but we want our actors to be prepared for reality." And I do uh, appreciate what they're doing, and I think it really says a lot about the industry because NYU has one as well, right? They have partnered with Runway to give them unlimited
Uh-huh.
video generation credits, right? And then Chapman, I think, has done probably the worst offense of all of it. They had Tilly Norwood give a talk
Oh,
at
really?
at Chapman, yes, and then they also have like active encouragement for like full AI use for creating stuff there, which and they have an AI writing like
Yeah,
program that's their become their most popular. So like that's kind of
that's
crazy.
scary. I saw that as well. The that it's like their runaway course. People want to learn how to use it, which is interesting because I mean that's all that opens up a whole can of worms about what our institutions of higher learning are doing, which is trying to design courses that students want to enroll in,
You know,
and in order to make more money.
because I
Um,
work at a university,
uh-huh.
uh, for my day job, and for those who don't know, I work at USC in communications. But I'm, it's probably come with a boatload of money, and that's the thing is
Oh,
that they're
right.
trying to stay open, right? They're trying to stay relevant. They don't want to cut their tuition benefits to students, so they have to accept money from somewhere. And right now in this landscape, because so much money was cut from the federal government, they're looking at all options. And right now, AI has a lot of money. So that's why you see a lot of these institutes popping up. And the one at USC uh, is sponsored by Adobe. So,
Oh,
and I think
interesting.
what their goal is to bring it back to actors is like they are trying to figure out. And I haven't spoken to anyone over there, so I don't have any insider information. I'm not breaking anything, but the what their goal is to try to figure out how could actors use AI to help actors, right? So it's not about like replacing them or like learning how to do a certain performance or even using it to judge performance necessarily. They're really thinking about like, okay, so this tool exists. Let's find the ways in which this tool is advantageous to actors. And I think there is something to that, and there are things that we can use AI for.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and there's already stuff happening in real time. Like I've heard of actors uploading scripts to get help with their script work, their scene study and scene analysis. Um, there are people touting AI to help you with finding reps, and submitting to projects, and AI apps that are will be a reader for you and I've even I think there's some marketing ones, and so there's instances where you could see, especially as AI becomes more commonplace, that it just naturally um, blends into every aspect of life in any industry. But I can't help but think about the what was the line? We don't condone this, but we have to prepare our students, type of
Yes.
thing. So, like, along that logic, I just immediately thought, well, that means we should have Jared Leto teach a class in method acting and just have him throw dead rodents at the students because they should be prepared, in case they ever book a job with someone who misunderstands the art of method acting.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I do understand that. Um, yeah,
Just an idea. I'm
yeah,
just pitching ideas. I think it could be popular.
for sure.
It'll be interesting to keep tabs on this. Like, who knows if it means
Yeah,
anything more.
and I would be surprised if they find ways to use it that aren't kind of already being done, right? Like,
Right.
it is a good tool for some business stuff. It writes a great corporate facing email. I would also say it's actually not that bad at mentorship in in a weird way. So like if you don't know what your type is or what your interests are, you can have a conversation with it to help you narrow down what your actual interests might be. Right. So like it is actually pretty good at this stuff if you're using it at all for like, generating your personal like leadership philosophy or helping you articulate things that you have ideas about, but maybe you haven't put into words. Like you can kind of like word salad into this thing, and then it will help you formulate more concrete ideas, right? And like the way you think about something ends up being the way that you do something, right? And it, so it can be good in that way of helping you figure out like, oh, this is the sliver of acting that I really want to live in, right? Like, so
Right.
for me, it was I like doing a lot of different things, but if I was going to sum it up, I really love playing men who behave like boys. And that, like, I didn't use AI for that, but that is the kind of thing that you can get to, right, more quickly. Instead of,
Sure.
working for 15 years to be like, hey, this is the theme. If I look back, it's like you can start to figure out, like, based on these scripts, based on these roles that I've done, this is the kind of stuff I enjoy. What are some of the themes that they're like, how can I talk to casting to tell them what I do? And
Yeah.
because that's the business value of it, and it is good at that. It is good at finding a pattern and presenting you with the simplest like answer for that.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you said, like, we'll see what they come up with, I suppose, and if it's any different from what you kind of already intuited it being good at. Because, like that's a helpful tool. I guess what did we do? What did people do before AI? They sent their friends emails being like, "What's my type? What do you see me as?" And
Sure.
like got feedback that
Or
way.
you'd pay for
Or
a
or
workshop or something.
you'd
Yeah.
share you'd work with your friends or friends from class to craft your email and stuff. So maybe it saves you from spamming your friends when you are worrying about new headshots.
Well,
But
I would say though that might be a negative use of it.
right,
Where
because it's
if you're
probably
yeah, if
good
you're
to get
consulting
feedback
AI
from
instead of
people.
your friends, right? I
Yeah,
think like friends are a valuable part of it. But if let's say you're starting out though and you don't have a lot of exposure to people that are further along, right?
sure.
Then it can start to be a little bit useful, especially because it is dealing with information that you provide it, right? So you
Yeah,
can be as specific as you need to be to get the wheels turning. And oftentimes, like what I've found is it's like you can't use anything that it generates, but it can be a good starting spot for you to then formulate your own idea.
yeah,
And I think that's where it can be useful. But again, I'd be curious to see what stuff they do. I would hate to see it replace agents in some kind of like automatic submission capacity. Obviously, like that's one small part of what agents do. Agents also negotiate a lot of deals. They're making sure that you're getting fair representation. If you have a problem on set, you're talking to your agent, right? You don't want to be the person talking to the producer. You want that intermediary. That is not something that is going to go away. The need for that is not going to go away, but I do
Well,
wonder
but
how
you
it's going
know,
to further disrupt the industry in ways that maybe we don't intend or don't understand yet.
speaking of AI changing the industry, the other big news story that I saw this past week was just the slow bubbling up in politics about the state of film in Los Angeles and California. The LA mayor's race, it is becoming a platform issue for all three candidates, I believe. Um,
That's right.
and now I've seen some headlines about the governor's race also sort of taking that issue on. I don't it I I don't know what to say about it except that, like, oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Like,
This is
who
a
would have thunk it?
positive outcome, right? This is a great thing that for them to be arguing about. And you got to think though, in Los Angeles, it's like thousands of blue collar jobs. So
Oh
like
yeah,
it has a tangible difference here. And not only that, it's like all of the support industries because you have like costume shops and makeup shops and caterers and hairstylists and like all of these other things that support the industry that aren't necessarily on set all the time, right? So
yeah, and one of the major things that seems to have cropped up for the mayor's race, specifically, is California passed these tax incentives, and they've been very good. They've done quite well at drawing attention and bringing productions to California and giving out loads of money. They're not quite as competitive as I believe New Jersey, and all of the U.S. isn't as competitive as um,
Europe,
Europe, who Marvel now is like, let's ship productions over because we don't have to pay for healthcare over there.
right?
So it
Like talk about
it
an
it's
endorsement for universal healthcare.
yeah, which has been the thing. Like, our unions fight for our healthcare, and if you get to be in a union and join the healthcare, like, that's amazing. And yet, wouldn't it be great if we could fight for other things because that was just there, um, because it
Yeah, I mean
existed.
we talked about it last week, right? Where how many things the writers compromised on just to get their healthcare covered. And
Right,
it's become a major leverage point just for them to then take those jobs and move them overseas. Right?
right.
It's kind of really disrespectful. And it's frustrating to see that happen. But I'm glad that they're at least talking about how do we make this cheap enough to bring production back to Los Angeles. Because even if the
Yeah.
things that have gotten the grants, they're not necessarily shooting here because they don't want to deal with Film LA. So if you're not
Right.
familiar,
They
Film
need to
LA
cut
is
through
the
some red tape in LA. That's
yeah, there's
the
a
next
lot of red
city.
tape. So like, in other cities, you don't need a permit to like shoot in a location, but you do for parking, or you might if you're shooting outside. If you have to close a street, obviously you need a permit. In Los Angeles, we have invented a way to make sure that everybody along the bureaucratic pipeline gets paid. And they need special circumstances. And somehow, no matter how much time you have, it's not enough time, you have a late fee. So it's like they're constantly moving the goalposts and driving up costs for permits, right? So, like, I've shot in New Mexico, no permit necessary. We could just go shoot. We were at a private residence. There was plenty of parking. Done. Nothing to do. But here in LA, you're looking at probably 8 grand in permit fees, which is like just insane for something that size. And it's like becomes a substantial part of your budget. But even if it wasn't for the money part of it, the process of getting a permit here is really a pain, right? Like if you have a shoot that is going to use a drone, for instance, and I've had
Right.
this experience where like that's a different permit, there's a big upcharge on it, and you have to get permits from everything that you fly over. So like if you are flying over Los Angeles, but you cross a park that happens to be California state, then you need a permit from California state as well. And if you look at like the district lines of Los Angeles, it is like all over the place, right? It's not very clear cut. So like the chances of you needing to pull multiple permits to do one shot are very high. And that's like
Mm.
super frustrating, right? And we've read now in the news about Baywatch kind of
Yeah.
getting run around a little bit because of their permit process to shoot on Venice Beach.
Yeah. With Baywatch, I mean, they got like 20 million ish tax money and tax credit from the state, and then they shoot it in Los Angeles instead of shooting it in Australia, which is great. And yet the production has had all sorts of nightmares trying to film on Venice Beach, like you mentioned. So it's like that's not going to work. That's not sustainable. And so they're trying to figure out a way to make Film LA sustainable for the. I mean, it's a big group of people who will benefit from it if they can figure it out, I guess.
Yeah, the most frustrating part of it for me was last year there was a city council meeting to get rid of Film LA, and they chose to extend the contract for five
Right.
years rather than repeal it, which was what overwhelmingly the film industry wanted. Was like, get rid of it. We do not need this huge like system policing these permits. And they're like, no, no, we'll make it better. And it, to no one's
Mhm.
surprise, has not been better.
The news is uplifting once again.
Yeah, we'll shift topics now to talk about representation, and but the news right now in the industry is tough, and it's important to talk about it because it does affect us and it affects actors, but it's not uplifting. But that doesn't mean it's like a death sentence, right? Like I do still believe that there is an avenue, maybe it's a shrinking corridor, to having some kind of sustainable like creative career, right? Like there's ways to use acting all the time, and like ways to get to do it, but there is definitely this withering of the middle class actor that unfortunately is very present in all the news.
Well, and I think the news, I mean, I think the news can be a call to action for us, for all of us as well. And it's
Yeah,
like, these are the things that are being discussed. So, paying attention to who's on the ballot this fall, like it has repercussions. And not only that, but like paying attention to Instagram accounts that are trying to keep film in LA, trying to get health care for all artists, regardless of their unions. There's a we could do a deep dive on some of the really cool activist accounts that are sort of artist activists, and they'll tell you about, hey, there's a city council meeting for Film LA, like people should show up, and people are, and and more people need to if we want to kind of you know get things shifting in the other direction.
for sure. All right. Well, speaking of shifting in another direction, let's talk about agents and managers. So, representation, there's a lot to cover. How do you get one? Right? That's probably the biggest question that people have. When is the right time? I think is a question that's not necessarily considered enough. Um, are they just going to find work for you? The answer is no. We can just get right to the front of that. But they do have a valuable purpose, as we kind of talked to a little bit in the AI section. But I'm curious, Patrick, what has your experience been with your agent? How did you find them, and what has that experience been?
Well, actually, I'm currently without an agent, a theatrical agent. I have a commercial agent and I have a theatrical manager.
Okay.
And I've been with my commercial agent for about 2 years now, and with my manager for quite a bit longer, at least 6 years, maybe closer to 10. Um, and um, and I parted ways with my theatrical agent a couple years ago, and had every intention of, and we parted amicably, and just wanted to shake things up, and had every intention of reaching out to new representation. And then we had a baby boy, and I got sucked into all of the things that is life and parenthood, and it dropped pretty hard down the priority list, and I'm starting to revisit that. So I think future discussions might chronicle some of the discoveries I make doing the agent hunt, because it's been a long time. But if I think back to being a baby actor in Los Angeles, um, I've had theatrical managers, and commercial or theatrical agents and commercial agents, and a different manager earlier in my career. And at the level I was at, it was about having someone getting me some television auditions, some commercial auditions, maybe a movie audition here or there. And it was just about getting auditions and that. And I went about it through my network of actor friends, like getting referrals, right, crafting the email,
Yep.
and then moving on when things felt when I've moved on from reps when it just sort of felt like I plateaued with them, or um I my communication, we weren't syncing up, just being on the same page of kind of like what I
What you
wanted or
wanted.
how I wanted to
Yeah.
communicate. Yeah. um
So
yeah, how about
I'm
you?
curious because, well, my experience has been like, generally it's been representation across the board. So with
Hmm.
you working with agents that are commercial and with theatrical, could you talk a little bit about their differences in case people don't know?
uh yeah. So across the board, meaning that one agency repped you
Everything.
for everything, and even if they might have had one person doing that, or I guess they could have had multiple agents within the same office, like different departments essentially. I never went that route. I think because I got advice early on that like if you were across the board and you had some success in one of those areas, like say you went out more, you booked more commercials, that you then wouldn't get prioritized in the television side. And I don't, that might have been a total myth that I just
Uh,
bought into. That I'm just saying that's why I
sure.
didn't.
Well,
Um,
some of my experience reflects that
oh,
with
okay.
across the board representation. And I know all of the stuff I've booked has been theatrical, but the only auditions I get from reps are commercial. And so it's,
Well, that's the other
yeah.
thing I think, you know,
Well, when they've
and I've
been
always
commercial
been,
reps, yeah, or across the board.
I think I'd apply this to managers too, because I haven't, I've intentionally not worked with managers who would submit for commercials and or take your commission off of commercials if you already had a commercial agent, because there's a few out there that do that. And I just thought, no, I want everyone focused on what their job is
Is.
for me to do. And I'd like you competing against each other. That was kind of my philosophy back in the day. And I think it makes sense, like from a just a like human nature standpoint, which is like when you find a thing that works, it's kind of nice to like let that thing do the working, and you don't have to, can just hum in the background. I know that I do that myself with my own work of just like, oh, this isn't working. I don't need to work. This is working. I don't need to worry about it. And I wouldn't necessarily blame an agent for being like, yeah, Patrick goes out for this all the time. Let's just keep that hamster wheel going. When I'm often looking, how do I get to the next thing, or how do I expand, or whatever.
And then
Uh, yeah.
another thing with you, it's like, yes, you've been foregoing theatrical agent for a little bit and working just with a manager. And I think this is a theme that we're kind of seeing more regularly now. And I'm not sure why this is, but it seems to me that the majority of my actor friends are getting more through their managers than they are through agents. And I've never worked with a manager, so I don't know what that is, but that seems to be the consensus from the people that I've spoken to. Is that seem similar on your end?
I think anecdotally, maybe. I I I feel like, and I think this is true lately because of the slowdown in the industry, but I think it's been true overall in just sort of where I've been at in my career, is that having both didn't necessarily mean more auditions. It just meant communicating with two people for the same amount of auditions. And then when the job came, the agent's job was to complete the contract and like procure that work, and the manager didn't have to do anything. Um, I think like historically, I guess, I mean, we could define what the two role, what seems to be the difference.
We should be. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I think we should.
Agents are legally allowed to get you work, whereas a manager is not legally allowed to get you work. So in the past, big stars have separated from their management and saved a lot of money in commissions by saying, they got me work and they weren't supposed to do that, which is what I had heard and that many years ago, and seems to be the case when if you could look up, you can look up those stories. Um, but agents take 10% of what you make, and that's the cap. They're not allowed to take more than that. And then there's franchise agents who are sort of, they work within SAG's guidelines and they're approved, which is nice, but they don't have to be franchised to get you union work. And then there's theatrical that'll work on TV and film, and then commercials who will focus on commercial stuff. Whereas your manager, I think traditionally, historically in film history, it's like they were seeing your whole career, and an agent might come and go or move or whatever. And the manager was the one who was guiding you, Sean, to be the next, Dean Martin or whatever. Like, so they would try to develop you, try to like package, like, oh, try to get you with a writer, try to create a star vehicle for you, whatever. They take 10 to 15%. I think a lot of them take 10% these days, but I've heard others take up to 20. And like I mentioned before, some of them take that on everything. So um, even the work they don't get you. So, I think that's the main difference nowadays, because everything is uh, online submissions. It's I think the gray zone is that probably both submit, and or they definitely both submit, and they can both procure work, and it's just no one's complaining about it or like sort of forcing
Well,
the enforcement of the law.
I think there is a something else that's happening at least at a higher level where managers are functioning as producers,
Yes,
right?
right,
So they're packaging, and some big agencies do this as well. Like the biggest agencies do this, where they'll package a few people together, a writer, a director, actor or two, find financing, and like they're an actual integral part of making that movie happen. So it would make sense that they're producers, but that's kind of become the principal way that they're making money, and it's not necessarily on 10%. And actually, you might not even pay 10%. Like the agency fee or the management fee comes out of the production fee that
right.
they get paid to by the studio or by the production company. So or by
Well,
the
and if you remember,
distributor.
right before the strike, the WGA told the writers to all fire their agents,
Yeah.
and that was because they were taking a stand on the agency packaging fees, because the incentive was for the big agencies to package and just package the shit out of a project, get all their clients in on different levels, and they're waiving those fees, but they're taking it out of the production budget of the project, and there were some other shenanigans there as well. So yeah, a lot of the big agencies these days are losing talent because those people are opening up shop to be their own manager, where I think there's less corporate structure for them to like abide by, and maybe they get a little big piece or a bigger piece of the pie, and um they take their best talent with them. It's a relationships game, right? I guess that's the thing I wanted to mention earlier with AI, is just, the whole point was that you wanted to be with reps. I think historically you want to be with representatives who have connections, have relationships, so they can pick up the phone and talk to somebody. They're keeping tabs on what's going on around town, and I think that exists at like the higher end of success in Los Angeles. I mean, there's stories of like, Steven Spielberg had to go to CAA in order to get a movie made. So, like, he had to take an agent to get the star he wanted, or the
Mm-hmm.
DP he wanted. I forget. But the so it's all about relationships. So it's interesting. Just, we're now all, a lot of us work from home. We're not in the offices. People aren't taking meetings and meetings out. So the relationship, the game, I think, has changed a lot. So I am curious, like, in this new era that we're in, how that changes the logistics or the benefits of agents and managers.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I wonder if you're going to start getting a bunch of advice that like you should be doing social media. You need to be on YouTube. Go, uh, you know, talk to people on the street and film it, and let's grow an
Mhm.
audience. Which there's so many different ways to do that, and I think that is going to be an important part of the industry going forward is having your own audience. And it's unfortunate that that's the case because I think a lot of great actors are not going to get an opportunity or they're going to choose to do something else because there's now like the scope of work has expanded so much, right? Which is been the case for a while, but I think that's like really accelerating at
Yeah.
this current point in time. And like everyone now is trying to build their own audience, writers, directors, producers, actors. Like everyone is trying to bring something with them so they can try to get financing because it's just getting more challenging to do
Yeah, I
that.
mean, we all
But
have to become hyphenates
yeah.
and have multiple skills. And so, I guess the benefit of the agent or manager or both is that they're the ones doing the hustling. Now that
Sure.
said, and I think the saying is true, it's like they get paid 10% or 15%, you still have to do 90% of the work. And so
Mm.
I've found his
Which is not just showing up on set. And
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 not just
no, it's
and
not
not
the
just
work you
doing
would
your
do for
audition on
free.
time. And
No,
yeah,
it's the actual work of finding work.
yeah, the meeting people, generating your own material. So I think, if I think of like if I talk to the younger version of myself that, got his first agent and manager and got some auditions and, was keeping track of it and watching the shows and learning all the stuff, I think I would say like, yeah, man, but still go make that thing, go film that other thing, like write a sketch, like you be in class because you have to be meeting people to create. And then in the process, sometimes you meet someone who's in the mailroom at an agency and they're going to move up, or you meet someone who's in casting and they're an assistant right now and they're going to move up to be an associate, so you still want to be out there trying to trying to be of service to people and of value and make, sharing your talents wherever you can. um you mentioned earlier, Sean, like when do we need representation? Like what, how has that thought process been for you? Or in when you think of all the actors you've met over the years, like where do you think when it becomes important or or not? I guess.
Yeah. So for me, I was unrepped until I joined SAG-AFTRA, until after I joined,
Hmm.
and I had booked a couple things through a network, right? So I think when you the way that I thought of it was like I was kind of hitting a ceiling with my network and I needed to expand that, right? So an agent or a manager was like the next way. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of TV and film stuff, studio stuff you can only get through an agent or manager,
Right.
right? So when I felt like I had enough material and I was getting that kind of feedback from acting teachers too, right? Where they'd be like, all right, we need to start thinking about how to get you in front of an agent or a manager. You might be ready for that. That people that you trust will kind of help guide you into it. And it's probably longer than you think, right? That you should wait. At least that was my approach to it. It was like I wanted to show up and immediately be like ready to compete and not have to like go through like some kind of growing pain process,
Right.
right?
Right.
I wanted to
Yeah.
show up and kind of like know what I like doing, know what my approach was, have a self tape process down or an audition process at the time down where I knew that I could go into a room. And if I could get into a room, I was probably going to get a call back, right? It's like where you could start getting into that point where like, all right, I'm kind of finding my groove a little bit. And then like when you're in that spot and you're kind of like humming, I think is when you start thinking about the business aspect of it. Like, all right, so how do I make myself marketable, get in front of an agent or a manager, and take things to the next level, which would then be like auditioning regularly for studio films and television. And that was, yeah, that was how I thought of it and how I approached it. And then for me,
Mm.
my journey to getting an agent was all through cold submissions, right? So I've had a couple different agents now over the years, and they've all been through cold submissions. So like crafting an email, sending an email out to like 200 people or whatever the SAG franchise list is at the time, and seeing how many meetings that you can get, which is like kind of demoralizing because you'll send 200 emails and you might get like 4 or 5 like, hey, reach back out in 6 months, and then you'll get
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 like, let's hop on a meeting. Unless you have a very particular look, or
Right.
if you have a very particular skill set, which, for me, there's a lot of people in my category, so not everybody's looking to take on like an athletically built white dude with blue eyes. So, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that out there. So, there's not a lot of space on some of these rosters. So it's just going to be like uh, a high hit rate. You just got to throw a lot out there and see what comes back, and do that somewhat regularly. But there's still things that you can do, right? All of the information you get back is feedback, and there's services out there that will help you know like what your open rate is, right? And that's going to tell you. And now it's like you're approaching it like business, right? Like this is just straight up business, and this is marketing, where you're crafting a subject line that's going to get read, right? So for me, what that was like male, 30 to 40s, athletic, former athlete, former scientist, classically trained through conservatory, right? And like that's your headline. It's
Swipe left. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, right. It's kind of long, right? But it's like you got to think about from their perspective is they're scrolling through emails all day, and a lot of it's like production stuff. So when they see actor submission, male, 30 to 40, Caucasian, former athlete, they know exactly what that is, right? So like they might be like, okay, if they need that, they'll click. If they don't, they won't. So, and that's just you're just trying to make it as easy for them as possible. And then like even then going into the email, it's like you can check your click through rate. So instead of putting your resume in there, link out to your Actors Access, and you can track how many people click that link, right? So it helps, and like Actors Access is the thing they want to see anyways. That's the portal that they're going to be spending the most time with, or casting networks, which more so now for commercials. But so you got to think about like the professional platforms that we have and how that's built out, where it does have your full resume. It needs to be current, and you need to have your right headshots in there, and you need to have your reel and your clips, and everything needs to be organized, right, and ready to go. But so then my approach for email to get people to click on that link is having it like, okay, hello person. I'm an actor who's like trained at these locations with these teachers, and this is what I've done in the last year. And then I would just list off like I booked leading 2 short films. I was a supporting actor in a feature. I booked a spec commercial. I was a lead in a play, right? Like, so these are things that I've done in the last year, and just like list it out, like I'm working, right? And that's the whole message that you're trying to say, is that like I'm marketable. So just whatever the greatest hits are, toss that in there, and then link out to the bottom. I attach my headshot, or I embed my headshots inside the email, so they don't have to download anything or click any links, right? Again, just trying to make it as easy as possible. So that way, like right then though, that's like they know my type, they know what I've done, and they see my headshot like right just from opening the email. And then that's from that point on, it's usually pretty quick. Mostly it's no, but you can think from their perspective, the ones that are interested are going to be like, you just made it very easy, and you just make the close kind of somewhat simple, where, like a closing statement for me would be like, I'm open to conversations with representation. I would love to hop on a 15-minute Zoom call to talk through what working might be like, right?
Sure.
Do you have time next week? And kind of leave it at that. But I think being as specific as possible with the ask, right? Like 15-minute, this is what I want from the conversation. And that really helps. So that's an approach that you've done. The way that I got, so like I've done that, and it has worked for me. The next like level of that, and I did this for a regional agent when I was living in New Mexico, was I reached out to the 5 casting directors that were there. And I was like, hey, I'm an actor. This is what I've done. I'm just moved here from Los Angeles. I'm trying to like get to know everybody. And then one of the big casting directors there, she replied and she's like, "Hey, talk to these two agents. You can tell them I sent you." And so I just like got lucky
Wow.
that she was like, "Here you go." So then I was able to open my email with like, so and so said that I should reach out to you about representation, and they're like, "Oh, how do you know her?" And I was like, "I reached out cold, and she said I should reach out to you." And then like that led to representation for me in that market. So the casting can be a great resource if you've developed that relationship, right? And
Yeah.
that's kind of going back to the networking aspect of it. And there's so many things about networking too that we should get into, where networking is finding someone that you want to root for, right? And in my opinion, and the way that I've gone about it and found success is, it's like, how can I help this person do their thing, right? Not how do they help me. So you got to flip it on its head of what you think about
Yeah.
with networking. And it's like, what are you working on? How can I help you do that? And as you grow your network, you can start thinking about like, oh, I know this other person that's looking for whatever that you do. Let me connect you guys and see if that works out, right? So like if you can start helping people solve their problems, they're going to start thinking of you more often, right? And it's just as a great way to do that. And then it also, yeah, again, just rooting for people. You're just finding people, you like their work, and you just want to root for them, and you just stay in touch with like, hey, I did a thing, but like the thing you did, really, really cool. I love that. It's like,
Yeah.
and just be specific, and I think it comes from honesty and being genuine. And but anyways, that's networking that is not the scope of this episode, but the,
Well, you said you gave a lot of good advice in there, and like I'll need you to show me how to track a clickable link later. But um, I think what underneath everything you said was a mindset too that I think is helpful for thinking about, when do you actually need representation? And it's like, one, you said it, it's like you had all your materials ready. Like you had the product of Sean Dubé like ready to go. You had your resume in order. You probably got that checked out by other professionals, other actors. You had headshots that you were proud of. You had footage that you were proud of. You had the whole package, and now you were taking it out to the marketplace and telling people, and knowing like it's no because it's business. Like if
yeah.
I say yes and it should have been a no, I'm wasting everyone's time, right? But I think the other thing, or go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, the other thing too is just like, yeah, I worked with actors to get all of that stuff put together, right? Like, who did they work with headshots so I could get
Mhm.
headshots, and like, what was their strategy for finding stuff? Which, like, when I was starting out, like before the union, I was on Backstage and I was on Actors Access and
Sure.
submitting to everything, and like I focused specifically on student films because they're the ones most likely to take a chance on you, and they're the ones that are going to go on to do work with you, right? And I think one of the things that I realized for myself was, I'm probably not going to get picked up by someone huge that's already large, right? Because there's so many reasons. I could get lucky, right? But then you're relying on luck, right? And hope is not a strategy. You need to really have something specific in mind. So I was thinking, like, okay, so the people down the road, they're going to be making movies, are students now. So let me get to know students, work with students, have fun creating things, and try to find a few people that you just like making things with, because that's really what it comes down to. And eventually one of you is going to get an opportunity, and you're going to try to bring as many people with you as you can, and that's just how the industry works. So me recognizing that, that's where I started, was just like a lot of student films, and then that helped
Right.
me build up a reel, and it did lead to connections that let me book some like legit New York
Yeah.
theater, right? And then like that starts getting a little bit okay. So you're learning some of that, and then I moved here to Los Angeles and kind of like started over, got into an acting class, started auditioning with student films, and booked a
Right.
few of those, and that actually has turned into some of my best work has come from people that I worked with on student films. Whether it was like the DP that was there because it's like a legit person that got hired to work on some AFI film, or the the director you worked with is now like an indie film cinematographer, and he slips your headshot to producers, right? Like, so there's, but that started because of just like trying to build a reel, because that's like the things you need, right? So maybe we should think about like what are the things you need to know that you're ready for an agent, and it's like it's a reel for sure that looks legit.
Yeah. I think yes, it's your all your materials you and
Yeah.
so that might be a process for you where you've done student films
Well,
and you've been burned
it
by some and some turned out well. You've
and it's going to
maybe
take a
done
few
headshots more than
years.
once. Yes.
Yeah, it
Um
takes a few years. It's not like, I think that is another like misconception with acting is, there's not another art form in the world where someone feels like they could walk in off the street and do it, right?
sure, right.
Ballet takes years, music takes years, painting takes years, acting takes years. So there's an art and a craft to this thing that like some people maybe have intuitive understanding, but you're then looking at like
Or they have the AI
0.01%.
writing program at Chapman University.
Or that, or that. Yeah, right.
But no,
Exactly.
your point taken. Like it's going to be a work. I think a lot of actors try to get an agent, like you mentioned, too
Too
soon,
early. Yeah.
right? They're just and so you can get burned out. I think that what I wanted to circle back to was the way you were describing the submission process and you were thinking it through. That lines up with a lot ways that I've done it in the past, where I had like my email, I had maybe a referral, and I emailed those contacts from the referral. And what I at the last time I did this, like the dating apps were all the thing, right? And I remember a friend who was like, I was like, dating apps are like your part-time job. It seems like she really wanted to find someone, and um she had a ton of dates, and she was also really amazing, gave amazing advice on crafting emails to agents. So I was like, they were totally the same approach. It's
It's
like swipe,
identical.
swipe, 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 swipe.
Yep.
It's a numbers game.
Yep.
Once you get a response though from that agent, from an agent or manager, that might be like circle back in 6 months. The thing I think I included mess up as a young actor is not doing that, not keeping that network, not feeling like of value enough to respond and keep that person in my network. And so when I'm thinking about like this dumb dating app analogy, it's like, no, you're not trying to find the one when you're looking for an agent manager. You're trying to find someone who will help you figure out where you're at and get you working in that direction. And hopefully they can grow with you, but maybe they won't. We don't know. Um, and if we so they're not going to be the one, but they could be like a really great friend. They could be a just someone who's in your network who you email a couple times a year, and you're keeping tabs on and rooting for them as well. I love learning when other casting people or agents or managers have other interests, like they're a Dodgers fan or whatever, and I can like, hey, they pop into my head, and I'm like, oh, that's right, you love the Dodgers, like congrats on whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
But
but
yeah, I mean, there's that paradox of like, when you meet someone in the industry, the last thing you want to talk about is the industry, right?
right,
Like what else are they into? What car do they drive? Do they wear watches? What are they doing in their free time? And maybe that is like, I'm an actor who's a filmmaker, so I like talking about filmmaking, but that's not everybody, so like you can't like assume that that's their interest. And I also have a lot of other ones, but
yeah. So
so
I think
you
like
find those things, right? And like, just how do you, I've heard it put once where it's like, you don't necessarily want to be offered a job, but you want to be invited to a barbecue. And that's the goal, is that like, how do I resonate with this person on a personal level, right? And find
yeah,
that connection. And through, you know, there's a lot of ways to build rapport, but that's like what you're trying to do, is just like, they're people, treat them as people.
yeah. And I think like there's a whole aspect about being an actor and working in Hollywood and it being cutthroat that feels like I got to get what's mine, like me, like I need this to get to there, I need that to get to there. And it's like No, no, at the end of the, yes, there is that exists. It's out there at every level, and yet
Probably not
like
necessary.
you are rewarded often for being a professional and for
Yeah.
showing up on time and for being polite and not an asshole. And you, who do you want to work with? So I guess when we think of like, when do you actually need representation? It's like, when are you going to have the bandwidth or the, the frame of mind to go through that rejection,
Mhm.
not take it personally, like keep going through it, like just keep going and going and take every little crumb that's thrown your way of some interest or some like, hey, and build a system where you're like, oh, I am gonna follow up with that person. I'm gonna start paying attention to where their client, when their next client books a show or something, right? And that's hard. It's so hard to do when you're
Yep.
just hungry too. And
Yep.
I'm talking from a place of like, I guess I'm doing research right now into representation. I'm trying to figure out who I want to like try to meet with, who that person is, but I'm taking a lot more time, I think, just because um I I know there's not that much out there
Sure.
that I'm missing out on. And but that didn't always feel that. It did not feel that way for the first 10 years I was in LA. It felt like no, there's another I didn't get that one audition that my buddy got, and like I should have gone in for that. Like that sort of mindset doesn't serve you in the long run.
No, no, it doesn't at all. I think you just mentioned something interesting that we should touch on. You do need to identify the agents that are right for you and that you might be interested in, which is another thing that takes a little bit of like business maturity and understanding. So can you talk about like what is the process that you're going through to identify agents that might be a fit?
Oh, it's so hard, but I am using a lot of IMDb Pro. I'm looking through their roster. I'm looking for which is so tedious. I'm clicking on their different clients at different levels. Fortunately, the star meter is kind of the only thing you have to go from. But like, if you click on a person, then you see their credits, um, and and it's tough because so I'm trying to pay attention to. I'm keeping track of all this information of where's this agency based? Do they have other offices in other cities? How many people work for them? I'm looking on Instagram, trying to see if they're and I'm searching podcasts and YouTube to see if there's any interviews of these people out there. I'm looking at their roster to just see what type of work their people are getting. Sometimes they're celebrities, and so that skews everything. But I'm looking for other actors that I sort of think, oh, they've been at it for a little while, and they've
Or
got
like
a couple
around your
credits. They're
level?
not just
Yeah.
the young hot things. Like that's not probably not going to be a good fit for me. Um, and and then I think the next phase will be I and this like the list of names comes from I think different conversations with different people of just like possible places. And I've run the list by my manager, and I'll probably return to that conversation again and
Mhm.
get more feedback, um, because because everyone people know each other and people work with each other. So um, I hopefully can get some referrals, but I'm looking and I see like, oh, this friend that I did a play with is with these people, or oh, that guy, I recognize him from being a friend of a friend or whatever. Like that's interesting. So I'm noting that type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but at the end of the day, like it's not going to be nearly enough information before
Yeah.
I have to just send those emails and say like maybe they want to take a meeting and find out. Um, I've always only worked with people that I had a referral from
Hmm.
previously. So and usually that was a friend who was with that rep. But now going into it now I'm thinking about too, like what do I want from them? What do I and it's going to be I want them to see me and hear me in terms of my goals, and say like this, I know this is where I'm at. This is where I'm trying to get to. And I want to hear a little bit about how we do that. I know,
Hmm.
the answer is probably auditions and book, but or build a relationship with somebody. But I also want to know so much more. I feel like one of my issues in the past has been not setting expectations from the get-go.
Mhm.
Like of what I like in terms of relationship, how to handle a business relationship like this. I think I've found some people it just naturally clicked, but I've also like I will fume if you don't email me back in like 3 days, like a week. Like I've sent
That's very
headshots out.
generous. Yeah.
Yeah, I've sent, especially when it's like something that we've already talked about, or
Yeah.
it includes like if it's like headshots where you're already feeling a little vulnerable, it's like I sent you that thing and you didn't get around to it. Now, people are busy and whatever, but
Sure.
so I think knowing the communication style, knowing how their business runs, and and then I think the other thing I've been when I was younger, I got surprised by was just some nuances in the contract and
Hmm.
their
Hmm.
expectations of when and how to get paid. And I just I want to be a person. I've been this person for a while now, but I want to be a person who's just like I don't complain about money. I send you what you're owed. I'm going to send it timely, and but I also want to be in control of it. Like I don't I'm not I have friends who have been scammed by their agents who left
Where you
town with
send them
money.
the check and they send
Yeah,
you
they
the
get a
money. Yeah.
check authorization and it never comes.
Yeah.
I've had friends who've
Well,
had
also like,
amazing relationships with reps who then disappeared on a coke bender in Mexico. And, so the other thing is like there are people like, like the agents and managers are people
yeah.
and good and bad,
Yeah.
just like all of us. So it's like figuring that I'm not a person who wants to go out to the bar with my agent or manager. I like going out to lunch or taking them to coffee. I would take them for a drink, but I'm not going clubbing with my
Oh,
manager.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, and any friend who introduces me to their agent or manager at who comes to the after party of like our sketch show, I'm sort of like, no, please stop, leave them now, tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, there's I mean I have a pretty strict like no after party
Policy.
policy. Yeah, listen, I think the party is enough for me. I don't need an after party.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm happy with the party. So I'll go to bed. Uh,
I don't know. What do you think? Are you think there's anything I missed that
no,
that a person should think about when?
yeah, I think the only thing that I would add is that when you're looking at agencies, one of the things you'll see is there's a lot of specialty agencies out there that you might not be interested in or you might be interested in, right? So like
Mhm.
that's another thing that can help you. Like when I was looking, I did narrow it down to like just theatrical, right?
Right,
I was looking for theatrical agents. And then, you'll get a list and then from there you have to then go through to be like, okay, so these people they say theatrical but they're really stunt performers, or
right,
these are really dancers, these are singers, right? So like you have to kind of figure out what that is. Or sometimes there's like there are agencies that supply models for background and that's technically theatrical, but that's like not what I was trying to do. So
right.
you have to like go through and see there are some specialties, or sometimes there's like agents that specialize in horror or like very particular character types. So you just have to kind of know if you're right for that and if that's what you want. Like those agencies are exist, right? So like I was surprised when I was looking through it just how specific they get, just like us as actors, where like we each have our business and our niche within the industry, and like agencies are the same. So you want to try to figure out who is kind of booking stuff similar to what you're interested in, who
Right.
might have those connections, and that's might be where you want to focus some of your attention,
Yeah,
and that can help you
I
narrow
think
it
if
down.
I think what is nice about looking now is that there's just so much more information out there too.
Yeah, it's
And
easier.
I think if I was new to town and didn't know where to start, back in the day, like there were books, like you'd go to whatever the dramatist bookstore or
Yeah,
whatever, and
yeah,
you get the
yeah.
book of agents, and you'd have mailers, and you'd submit
Oh
them,
yeah,
and
doing a mail merge.
and those are gone, and there might be a digital version, but I sort of doubt it. But what there is SAG-AFTRA Foundation, SAG-AFTRA's YouTube, like there are agency panels like
Yeah,
on there. There's Um, there's a couple, the places that do workshops, they have agent nights. You can look, I would say if you just wanted to get a feel, like
Yeah.
look up what those places are, because chances are those, I think the agencies and managers that are going to those workshops are looking for actors that they can try to get some co-stars going for, or commercials.
That's
They
definitely
they're not there to get you. They're not like gonna be like, they're not looking for their next series regular or action movie star necessarily. Maybe they'd find one, I suppose, but I think they're there for a different reason, and it's to um be provide an education. It's a great way to just meet new actors, and then it's also, they're maintaining that relationship with that workshop studio too.
for sure. And that is a great way to like, I agree. I think that if they are doing workshops, they're likely looking for talent. So even if you, let's say you don't have the money to pay for the workshop, you can find that person's email and shoot them an email, right?
Yeah,
Like they might
sure.
be open to a meeting. So like, so there might be backdoor ways in, but I mean, you won't know unless you try. And unfortunately, it's kind of like breaking out of prison in the way that no one does it the same way twice. So
Yeah.
it's as unique to us as we are people. So
Like if I'm
yeah,
manifesting for us or for myself, it's sort of like, I would like to, I'm happy to send cold emails, but I would like to get to a place where it's like, hey, I saw your work, you're doing a thing, like,
well,
why don't we talk,
and I
like,
think that's
it
more
has to
so
be.
where we are now in our careers, and like why through producing our own stuff and going to film festivals, we're hoping to find some of that success,
Sure, yeah.
right? But I think that's a different game than if you're starting out.
Well,
I
it's,
mean, maybe
yes,
it's
if you're
not. Maybe it's not. Maybe like if you've done 40 things and you're now doing film festivals of a certain level, you might also meet a rep there that does the same thing, right? And you're kind of like, yeah, I don't know, just hitting it off with in a business sense.
And I think if you're starting out now, like the what we've touched on already is you're going to learn from the actors around you a lot.
Yeah.
When when there was a book that everyone got circa 2010 when they decided to move to LA, and it was like Self-Management for Actors by Bonnie Gillespie. And I looked it up in prep for this. I was like, she was at one point updating it,
Yeah.
but it hasn't been updated since 2014. So um
Yeah.
and you could look that book up. There's probably some decent advice in there. I
Sure.
think even in that book, I can't be positive that there was an anecdote about like Jack Nicholson's uh manager or agent and like their number or email. And I knew an actor who was like, I emailed that guy and he took a meeting and he refed me. And then that beautiful man died like a month or two later.
Oh
So it's
man.
like any advice is sort of like, it all comes with different strings that you just don't expect. But unfortunately, there's no like book like that anymore that has like some good practical advice. There's a lot of stuff on Instagram, I'm sure, but I think
Well, but that
it's
it's
knowing the actors around you, seeing what's
yeah.
working for your friends, and then sending an email, like opening a lot of doors,
Yeah.
for people, I think.
Yeah. And Instagram is not always the best
No,
source
we'll
of
talk about
information.
that sometime.
There's a lot of misinformation, a lot of bad information, and it's a lot of people trying to monetize hope. So you do have to be careful there. So I think, I mean, we're running a little long, but I think it's worth it for this conversation. I think it's been constructive. Another thing, so I think now, you've got your agent. What are some of the expectations, and how do you communicate with them? Like, how often are you reaching out, or what are the kind of things that you have conversations with them about? Like, I'm curious. Like, what is your communication like with your agent or your manager? And yeah, just
Yeah,
what does that look like, and what were your expectations going in?
I think your relationship is like any relationship a little bit. So, if you're a person who needs a lot of validation, I think you're looking for like a lot of feedback all the time. And I don't think that's what agents and managers are for. Your agents and managers are for getting you out to audition. Like that's it. They're not there for holding your hand all the time. Like maybe every now and then something, you know, they can be there for you in these ways, of course, but like it's not emailing them about every workshop or class you're thinking about. And so I've always been pretty of the belief that like I shouldn't bother them too much. Now, that said, I've also had to tell myself to sort of like start conversations again and like set
Mhm.
new boundaries and like set new expectations. And I've you know been like let's go out to coffee or lunch, you know, once a year, maybe once a quarter. It feels like a lot, but maybe
I guess it
twice a
depends on
year.
how busy you are.
Depends on how busy you are, how busy they are. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing is like you're one of many actors, and you want to be an actor who's I want to be an actor who's easy to work with and not a pain in the ass.
Right.
So that's kind of my guiding light, I guess. So mostly it's just get an audition, confirm it, confirm receipt, and send. And occasionally I send a little update after the audition, like I really had fun with this one, or you know, whatever. And bookouts, bookouts. I tell them all my when I'm booking out. That's the primary thing, but you know, maybe I need to push myself out of my comfort zone a little bit and have more um, personal conversations with them one on one a little more frequently. What about you?
Very much the same boat. I'm also like an actor that they don't have to worry about, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, things are going to get confirmed. Everything's going to be presentable. But yeah, just an actor that they're not going to have to worry about. Like, things are going to be in at the deadline. Things are going to be communicated like properly. Bookouts are going to be communicated. Which, like, a book out for if you're not sure what that is or don't know what that is, if you haven't heard that term, you're letting them know when you're not available for work, right? So
yeah,
they don't want to send you for something like if you know that you're going to be visiting family in June, you don't want to be auditioning for something that shoots during that time. So like that's really what that is. It's your availability, and that's what you're communicating. I also don't ask for a lot of feedback. I, mm, I've found that good agents will kind of give you it if it's solicited or not.
mm,
Where if you do a self tape and there's like a distracting background, the next email when you send it in, it's gonna be like, hey, that background was distracting. Like, noted. So like that stuff is useful. And you got to think they're looking from a business perspective. So like, they want to, do they feel comfortable putting you in front of casting that they have relationships with? Right? They're sticking their neck out there for you, especially if you don't haven't had a lot of auditions yet, and they're sending you out, or if they pick the phone up, which I don't know how much that's happening now, but like if they pick the phone up to get you an audition, then you really have to put the work in for that. So like I always want to be that actor that's like they don't have to worry about me. It's going to be on, yeah, confirmed, sent on time. It's going to be tight, right? I'm going to make bold choices or whatever, but
right.
it's like it's going to be professional across the board, right? It's going to be professional work that you would expect from a professional actor. I also could be better about maybe quarterly or annually at the very least being like, hey, what is stuff you're submitting me for that I'm not getting, right? That I'm not getting auditions for. And just like trying to figure out, do I need to change some materials, right? Are my
Mm,
materials just not great? Do I need to get a period piece like scene, to get out there? Or do I need a different photographer for a headshot? And you do need to be careful not to change things just to change things because there's so much of this industry that's unknown and not knowable. But, they can give you a submission report that'll show you, hey, I've sent you to these roles, and like you haven't been called in for a single military role at all. And then that's for you to be like, you know what? Don't submit me to military. I'm not interested. Or maybe I should think about, like that is a role I could play. Maybe I should do a headshot in something that might welcome that audition.
right, right.
But again, I'm terrible at communicating generally because similar to you, like when you talk to them and when you meet with them, they are so busy, constantly on the phone with production and managing so many different things and their own personal lives on top of that, that like I just don't want to be a problem, but I could probably stand to benefit from a little bit being a little bit more of a problem.
Well, I think it's
Not
like
a
you can
problem, but
always
like
reset. You
yeah,
can always reset. So you can, so if like in that example, it's like, okay, like you don't even have to. I think sometimes the submission report is a little
it could be
dicey
big
because,
brothery, right? Also, and it's like I don't like
well,
it.
it's, yeah.
Yeah,
I think actors have used it in the past to sort of fuel anxiety of, say, like,
like are you
here's,
submitting me?
are you submitting me? And it's
Yeah,
like, it's not for
that's not the
that.
way to use it. It's yeah,
So, so I think if it's like, hey, I'm thinking about targeting these type of shows and they have military characters, do you think I should change? Like, you
yeah,
can ask the question directly. Or, I think uh, anything, any additional photos, any additional scenes is all material for them. Like it's ammunition for them, right? So
yeah,
unless it's not aligned with how they see you or how they want to pitch you, then they'll probably just accept it and go and run with it. But if it isn't, then that's a conversation to have. So I think, have that. I guess that's a conversation. That's something we didn't mention earlier. Like making sure you're aligned on, like, hey, where do you see me in the marketplace? Where,
yeah.
like, what type of roles do you see? What type of television, what type of entertainment do you see me in? Television, movies, sitcoms, whatever. And making sure that's the same, right? Because if they're like, oh no, Sean, you're perfect age for a sitcom, and it's like, okay, I don't have any multicam experience, I gotta go get some if you want to submit me for that, I guess,
Yeah.
or go get some proof that I can do it and film something.
Yeah.
um that would be, that would be a something to do. But
For sure. And I think we should wrap up with just like what are some red flags when
yeah, these are
talking to
pretty
agents? Yeah.
pretty straightforward. It's like, no paying money up front. Anyone
No.
who wants money up front is a problem. So
Right. Yeah. No monthly fee.
no
No.
scams,
Yeah.
no I'll represent you, but you have to go work with this photographer, or we need you to pay for
Or take
XYZ.
these classes.
Or take, yes, none of
Yeah.
that. So it shouldn't have any strings like that. uh a legit person is going to say, like, they're going to have a meeting with you, they're going to have a conversation, they're going to talk about your materials, and they'll be like, cool, here's my logo to put on your resume, I'm going to send you a link to attach your stuff to, and like you're done. um so yeah, no, nothing that involves money. And then I think the other thing is just knowing the parameters of,
Yep.
what the contract before you sign, what it says about, how you pay your residuals, how much you owe them for work that they get
Yep.
you, how long the contract is. um which I think a lot of them, the real ones, it's like, it's sort of unspecified necessary, but it's
Yeah.
not like you're not locked in typically. There's
No.
usually an exit clause. So, and did I
Right.
miss anything, you think?
I would say also like not meeting them in a hotel room for
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
you just use there's like your obvious um scam detector stuff.
Yeah. I think
You,
if someone reached out to you on Instagram, they're probably a scam. They're
yes.
like, and we'll talk about scams at some point, I'm sure, but because there's a lot out there. There's like sketchy photographers and sketchy all sorts of things. But with agents or managers, like, you're generally going to either meet at their office, or if they work from home, like a lot of people do, you'll
Use
probably meet
Zoom.
at a coffee shop or over Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah, over Zoom. And and that's, and you can usually look up their roster and even cross reference and talk to them. And it's a it's, I mean, those are the red flags, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
um I think we kind of covered, like, pretty much everything at that point.
I think so. Yeah. This is certainly an episode I would have been interested in like 8 years ago. You know, like
Yeah,
because there's
there's
just
maybe,
there's a lot of information that we went through, and you know, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music or watching on YouTube, like drop us a comment. You can send us an email at ask@supportingactors.com.
Nice.
You can let us know what your experience has been with agents, or if you have additional questions, let us know and we'll answer it in the follow up next episode. But yeah, I think this has been pretty comprehensive in terms of our perspectives, and I'm sure there's other ways that people have gone about this. I think I had a friend once that played soccer in a like a men's league, and like got repped that way just by living life, right? So you never
Mhm.
know, especially if you're in a major market where you're going to meet someone that might be connected to the industry and how that could play out. But all right, let's wrap up. What do you think? Some ad libs? Yeah,
Sure.
great.
What are you getting joy from these days?
So for me, I've my brother is hardcore into video games. I also like a good video game, so I'm not gonna like completely remove my responsibility from this. But he's a big fan of survival games, and we like to play them together. So one that we've been playing recently that's kind of in early access still is called Windrose. And it's an indie developer, and essentially what it is that you're a pirate that has survived like a shipwreck from another pirate that like took over your boat, and you wake up on a remote desert island and you need to like scavenge and survive, and then you build like an army and a boat, and you go like get your ship back and rescue your men. So
This sounds like a metaphor for being an artist in Hollywood right now.
it kind of is a little bit, a little bit. Maybe that's why I like it. But yeah, so like that's
Yeah,
it's called Windrose. It's been a
cool.
lot of fun. It's a very responsive game. I was surprised because we've played a bunch of these things, and you know sometimes they're very slow, they're very grindy, or just the mechanics are a little sloppy with the you know like they've spent effort on building but not on fighting or combat, right? And this is one where it just feels very polished already, even though it's early. It's very snappy and it respects your time. You know, like it doesn't take very long for you to start building stuff that's fun to build and
Oh, cool.
get into. So yeah, Windrose, it's been great. And how
Nice.
about you?
I just started a reread of a novel that I absolutely loved and devoured in 2023 because the writer had his follow up is coming up. So the I started rereading a novel by Jordan Harper called Everybody Knows, and it's set in Los Angeles and it's like neo noir. It's a black. Well, he has this great phrase. It's a black bag PR operative
Okay.
named May, who's like going to the Chateau Marmont and like solving problems for like famous wealthy people.
Where did that
And
eggs
then
Benedict go?
yeah, it's so and LA's on fire, you know,
Oh,
so this is pre like it's so it prophesized quite a bit of the next few years, like in
yeah.
this really intriguing way. There's also a sort of out of work, or rather a security, like former law enforcement security operative, and the two of them team up to solve a murder that takes them through the sort of like cabal of Hollywood and the networks of just like the sort of like you imagine just the extreme wealth and power.
Hmm.
Um, and I loved that book so much. He's got a follow up coming out at the end of the month called A Violent Masterpiece, and he dropped a book trailer for it, and it looks like insane. I have no idea what to expect. I don't
Yeah.
know if what characters move on,
Yeah.
but the thing that was really cool about reading it right when the first novel, right when it came out, and I learned a little bit about his writing process through like a book event, and I actually walked the picket line with him. It he like he'll read all sorts of crime stories, real life newspaper clippings, indie journalists, all sorts of stuff. And then he just kind of puts it into this cauldron of his own imagination and love for movies and comes out with a hyper stylized fictional thing that feels very real.
Hmm.
And so, sure enough, like the years that followed since reading that book, I would text my other buddy and be like, send him a news story. It's like, dude, everybody knows. Like, he was just he was on it, and so I'm excited to see, excited to read the next one. So I just wanted to reread that and get all sorts of I don't know. It's very adrenaline pumping crime fiction.
That sounds fun.
It's dark too,
Yeah.
but
No.
the writing is so good. Oh, that's the other. I mean, this kind of ties back into, whatever acting, but he had a movie. One of his novels turned into a movie called She Rides Shotgun. It's a beautiful story with convicts and white supremacists and a dad and daughter. This one, I think he's writing a script for like an adaptation, but you read this book and you're like, oh my God, I want this to be a movie so bad. I want it to be a television show. It's just so ripping. So check it out.
That's awesome. All right. Well, this has been another episode of Supporting Actors. I'm Sean Dubay.
I'm Patrick Quinlan.
And we'll catch you next time where we discuss if being self-consumed means you have to consume oneself.
Oh, like a ring light eating its own tail.
Yeah.